This is Street Knowledge with Chris Graham.
Welcome to the podcast. Chris Graham and Rod Mullins. Rod's in stormy Southwest Virginia as we're getting ready to do this podcast here, talking some NASCAR and some Indy as well. Wrapping up last weekend, looking ahead at Pocono this weekend in NASCAR racing. And Rod, let's talk first. Coca-Cola 600. Martin Truex gets the win. Let's talk about Martin Truex Jr., what he was able to do, how he pulled that out there, and also some of the other winners and losers from this past weekend in Charlotte.
Well, Martin Truex just did not have a car at the early beginning of this race that looked like a contender. I mean, he hit the fence, and he said pretty much on lap 74 when they blew the tire and hit the wall, he said, "We're done. I don't know how we're going to be able to fix this." But they managed to come back, and as he said in post-race comments, Martin Truex just gave the credit where credit was due to his team. He first had won a race, one hell of a team. He said, "We never gave up on anything." Even when he blew that tire, everything just seemed to hold together. Kirchie Coburn was even bragging about it and said, "I thought we had a car that was just junk, that we wouldn't make it, that we wouldn't be able to make it through this." And for a while, it looked like Greg Keselowski was going to really come away with this because he won stage one, he won stage two. But Martin Truex came around with that car, and that car also came around for him. And there it was a 5-lap shootout there to the end as he beat out Joey Logano to the finish line to earn his third win of the season, the 22nd of his Cup career. And so right now he's tied with Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski for the most wins in the first 13 races of the season. And it was only Truex's second Coca-Cola 600 win since 2016. So it was a great win for Truex. We saw some great performances from some of the other drivers as well. Chase Elliott, who finished in fourth place, he was followed by Ricky Stenhouse with a top 5 finish. Chris Buescher, he ended up finishing 6th. Alex Bowman continued his top 10 ways. Jimmy Johnson still in that winless streak, but he managed to finish in the top 10. Pole sitter William Byron. Kevin Harvick was, a matter of fact, the only Ford sitting there besides the Joey Logano car right there at the end. And, of course, Toyota wins the race with Truex driving that one. But, the one that I really felt sorry for on the race as a whole, Chris, was Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones got started, looked like he was going to do well. 22 laps into the race, right front tire blew on the Toyota Camry, put him to the wall. You had a number of people. Kyle Larson also, he got loose in stage 4. He slammed into Clint Boyer and Austin Dillon, started a wreck there. They started spinning. But there was one thing that happened to stand out to me, I guess, more so about this race, and that was the fact that the Joe Gibbs Racing cars all had right front or front end suspension, front end tire problems. They would either blow a front tire or they would blow a right rear tire. And something, especially the front tire, it made it look like it was something they just really hadn't set up for on the night. Martin Truex and his crew managed to make it through that, even though they had their little wreck, and they managed to win this race. But there were some problems for some of these cars early on in this race, and it definitely noted in the finishing results.
So, and it was a fun day. Indy race also, Memorial Day weekend, Memorial Day Sunday of Memorial Day weekend. We'll look ahead to Pocono and the Tricky Triangle coming up at the end of the podcast. But there have been rumblings about an Indy NASCAR weekend. Rod, take us into this story and what's being talked about here.
Well, over the weekend, there were some NASCAR drivers that were being asked about the prospect of their world maybe going together with IndyCar in a doubleheader weekend with the top series competing at the same track. And some of the drivers jumped on this almost immediately. The doubleheader had been part of the conversation at Indianapolis also, where the Indy 500 preceded the 600 on the weekend. Daniel Hemrick told NBC Sports, "Sure, bring it on." He said, "I have nothing against it. Obviously, Chevrolet does a lot for our garage as well as that side of it. He thinks it would be cool." Denny Hamlin also goes along with that. He thought that it was a good idea to mix both of the sports together and see what could happen with it. A former Team Penske driver Justin Allgaier said that he's competed in the Xfinity Series. He's all for a doubleheader because, for him, going to the Penske shops and being able to go through the IndyCar shop, he's made a lot of friends over there. But there's a lot of challenges that we face the two sanctioning bodies on being able to get this together. One thing that has to boil down to their safety. NASCAR has an AMR team, which is their safety team that is at most of the races, at all the races, as a matter of fact. IndyCar has their Holmacher team, and there's a difference in tires. There's got to be a difference in the setup of the car. You've got to have different rubber compounds for those for that particular weekend. Now, for NASCAR, it doesn't affect them as much. Of course, you tell that of the drivers this past weekend at Charlotte, but there's still a lot of question marks. But there are some of these drivers now that are starting to believe that maybe it would be a bad idea to put NASCAR and Indy together. And I have to say this, the race this past weekend at Indianapolis wasn't a sellout. It was still full. They had a lot of people there in the sand all over that track, but they still did not have a sellout. Charlotte did not have a sellout, but it was good for the TV audience seeing that. As a matter of fact, the ratings were up, I think, something like a share 13 or something like that overnight for the NASCAR race for the Coke 600. So things improved with the Coke 600, but the big thing is trying to get them on a track that would be able to host both of them. Iowa could host it. Indianapolis, they could host it. Road America could host one. Mid-Ohio, Pocono Raceway, Texas and Charlotte are, some tracks that could be looked at. But folks, you're going to definitely have to rule out the Bristols and the Martinsvilles because there's no way. This car travels so fast, they would be outside the racetrack, the Indy cars, before they even made the turn. It would just be unreal to see something like that. So short tracks, definitely no, but we're seeing some tracks that could come into this. Just about everybody is going to be able to host except for a Bristol or a Martinsville. So they're still talking about this. We're going to have to find out what's going on. Who knows? We might be able to see an IndyCar race at the Roval down in Charlotte. That could be coming up as well. So we'll have to wait and see where these two sports, NASCAR and IndyCar, are going to decide to go here in the future.
Yeah, neat concept. Lots of logistics to work out, but yeah, the exposure to both fan bases. If you get the Indy fan base to stay around for the NASCAR to get there and watch the Indy race, you might grow both fan bases. That's got to be part of the thinking here on the behalf of the Indy and NASCAR officials. Is that, hey, we can tap it. These folks are the folks on the other side of the fence are also race fans. So if we can get them to enjoy our racing too, then that's a natural way to grow the fan base outside of just trying to create new racing fans. Let's get the existing racing fans to enjoy more different kinds of racing.
Yeah, and there's one thing that we need to point out, too. I think that when the Brickyard set up and went there almost 25 years ago to Indianapolis, there was some of that stigma of the good old boy sport and NASCAR removed from, I guess, a lot of race fans in Indianapolis. There's some people that are still going to hold it against NASCAR and say it's a southern sport that has no place being in Indianapolis, but I think it does. But the same way that I look at it, I think that an IndyCar, why possibly if they could pull it off, they could bring an IndyCar racing series down to Daytona. I think it would be even more advantageous for to do that. I think a lot of the stigma and a lot of that previous vision that they used to have of NASCAR by the IndyCar fans, and then the IndyCar fans, the way that NASCAR looks at them, I think a lot of that has kind of evaporated, but there's still an uneasiness there, so to speak, and I think this would be the perfect way to kind of blend the two worlds together and kind of get them on the same footing, so to speak.
Turn our attention to Pocono, the 2.5-mile triangular track, the long straightaways, and Kyle Busch has dominated the last 4 years. He's won 2 of the last 4 races. He's led in all 4 of those races, led a lot of laps, 239 combined laps, led in the last 2 years at Pocono for Kyle Busch. So does he go in as a favorite, and who else might we be looking for this weekend in Pocono?
Well, he's got to be looking at this race here as at least a little bit of comfort after the track fell apart for him down in Charlotte the other night. His car, it's just almost a repeat when listening to Radioactive. It was almost a repeat of this car is about to jump. This car is worthless. This car cannot do anything. And although he made it sound good there at the very end of the race and told people that we were there top 5, top 10 car and everything of how we will finish or how we finished. For him, it's a disappointment because he was hoping to stay in there a lot closer to the front and maybe make a run there towards the very end. But for him going to Pocono, it will be a big plus and a big shot in the arm. But right now, he's got a couple of factors he's going to have to slow down because one of the things that's really has impressed me here in the last few weekends has been the resurgence of Chevrolet. Chevrolet has selected 4 straight top 5 finishes at Talladega first, Dover 5th, Kansas at 4th, Charlotte 4th, and it marks the longest top 5 streak of the 23-year-old Chase Elliott's career. But they have collected some really top 5 finishes here with him over the last couple of weeks. His longest previous streak was 2 races in August 2018 at Bristol and also at Darlington. It could be a good race for Chase Elliott out of that. But the Chevrolets have showed some resurgence. They really worked together at Charlotte the other night, and I thought that maybe, just maybe, they might get there to the winner's circle. And William Byron was driving there really well there at one point. You had several of these drivers in Chevrolet that were really looking good. The Fords also look good. I wouldn't really rule out a Ricky Stenhouse victory in this race either. He's been coming on here as of late, and there seems to be a lot of things falling into place for Roush Fenway Racing right now at this point. Ricky Stenhouse just announced today, I think, as a matter of fact, that they are picking up some more sponsorship out of the race. NOS Energy Drink is going to be going on to the car, the 17th car with Ricky Stenhouse. They've been big on the Kyle Busch cars and some of the other circuits in the Truck Series and also in the Xfinity Series. But they're going to be racing coming up. They'll be on the primary sponsor on the car coming up at Michigan. So that's a big shot in the arm for Roush Fenway Racing right now at this point. And then you've got a couple of other drivers that's going to be making a run for it as well. Mark Truex, he's got some momentum right now at this point. Just 3 wins on the season so far in the last 5 races. That's pretty good numbers for him right there, the way he's come up on this. So you got Martin Truex, you got Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott. I'm not going to rule out Joey Logano in there, but one dark horse I think that folks need to be looking out for, it's Alex Bowman. He failed to make a 4th runner-up finish in the race, but he still finished in the finished 7th in the longest race of the season. It's nothing to be ashamed at. I think Alex Bowman should be coming around for Hendrick Motorsports before it's over with. And 2.5 miles of that triangle, it's a changing track constantly. It's a different situation than what they've had at Charlotte. We'll just have to wait and see what this one's going to pull out. And we can't forget either, Chris, I want to mention too, this weekend I'll be down at Bristol. I'll be covering the Short Track U.S. Nationals this weekend on Saturday at Bristol Motor Speedway, and there's a lot of future stars that will be there. One of those stars, Kyle Busch, has been pushing through the ranks. I don't know if he's going to be there or not, but the name will definitely ring a bell with some people. Rafael Lessard, he's out of Canada. He's out of Quebec. He's a great driver. We may see him there this weekend, but this is for a lot of the late model cars. All of this is going to be on an action-packed weekend coming up on Saturday at Bristol Motor Speedway. So we'll see a lot of great action, and we'll be reporting that back to Augusta Free Press this weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say, for our listeners out there, look for Rod's coverage this weekend of that. We'll have that on Saturday as the day goes on Saturday. And then, of course, Rod will be covering the race on Sunday from the home office, and we'll catch back with him next week and help you make sense of Pocono, look down the line for NASCAR. So, wow, we covered all this, Rod, and we actually dodged the raindrops on both ends of our long phone line here. So thanks for your time today.
Appreciate it. Thanks.